Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York City-based jazz trumpeter John Sneider. His new 2020 CD is called The Scrapper, and it's actually his nickname, and he will explain. It's from the Cellar live label via Cory Weeds, and it's keeping that tradition of quality jazz rolling forward. He's originally from the New England area, and he has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in jazz. Over the years, he has performed with the likes of Max Roach, Larry Goldings, Curtis Fuller, the Carnegie Hall Jazz Band, the Mingus Big Band, Chris Potter, and it goes on, even the Saturday Night Live Band. He's got great stories, so please get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
I just received this CD in the mail over the weekend, and I popped it in, and I've had a great time listening to The Scrapper. So from you, as the artist, what was your vision for this project?
Well, my vision was a couple-fold. I have not done my own CD in many, many years. I've been a mercenary working for other people, and also I do a lot of writing commercially. I was about to turn 50, and my kids are starting to get out of the house, and I was like, it's my time again. I got the guys that I've been playing with for 30 years together, basically, you know. I came up in New York in the early to mid-'90s. I was one of the first guys playing at Smalls with, you know, Chris Potter and many of the guys on the record, and I was just like, I just felt it was my time to start making a statement and not always being a sideman anymore. So I just got the guys together, and the linchpin kind of was getting Larry in town, because Larry and I have done so many projects together. I've played on his records, he's played on mine, and we've played together with Madeline Peru and other people. So once that was in place, I got my guys, and we just one rehearsal and went in and made it just like a really fun date.
Are you from the New York area?
No, I am from a town, well, it's a city actually called Brockton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
It's a city of about 150,000 people in southeast Mass. Kind of a tough town. It was very much known for being the home of Rocky Marciano, the famous heavyweight. And then later on, Marvin Hagler. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, yeah.
And we had a huge high school. I came from a humongous band program. There were 6,000 kids in my high school. Phenomenal band program, jazz program, all that kind of stuff. And then I moved on from there.
Well, and so how did you get weaned on jazz, and what musicians did you listen to in the beginning?
Well, I was always improvising. My first instrument was piano, and I would always take the lessons I was given and start making my own themes out of them. You know, as a rite of passage, as a young person, you're playing pop music after you're playing classical music and all that kind of stuff. But in school, you get introduced to certain kinds of music in the jazz band in elementary, middle school. I started digging deeper probably in middle school beyond the normal stuff. And then as a trumpet player, of course, everybody shows you Maynard and Chuck Mangione and all that. But by the time I was, 14 or 15, I got the bebop bug. And, of course, my all-time hero is Clifford. Clifford Brown is just the greatest. But from there, I had the bug, and also my brother's a jazz guitar player. He teaches up at some School of Music, and phenomenal jazz guitarist, Bob Sneider. And he had a guitar teacher, Chet Crewley, who had played with everybody, had taught at, Berkeley in the 60s and 70s, but, he had played with Don Redman. He had roomed with Art Blakey. He had played with everybody, and he sort of hit us out to a lot of music, too. So by the time I was in high school, I was just graciously going after records. And it's such a different age, because back then records were more important than movies and video games and all that kind of stuff. And you sat down with your record in the room and you read it, you held it, it was tactile, and you wore those records out, I can picture myself, holding like the Duke Ellington Great Paris Concert double record and listening to that thing over and over and over again, things like that. My favorites, it's hard to even say who favorites are now, but, certainly Clifford's the all-time favorite, and Kenny Dorham and Dizzy, and the list goes on.
So who were some mentors? Who were some people, in your bachelor's and master's era that really had advice that's resonated up to today with you?
Well, it's funny. I went to, my parents were freaked out about me being a music major, so I went through some things that happened. I was in the McDonald's All-American Jazz Band in high school, and I met this guy, Evan Dobbins, and he's like, oh, you should, if your parents are freaked out, maybe you should look at the University of Rochester. And I did, because Eastman was part of it, and I was knocked out. And it's there where I met Bill Dobbins, who's a legendary music educator, who opened my mind to a whole host of music before 1955 and after, too, because I was sort of just so locked in at that point on a very specific period when I got to school. But I feel like Bill was a really important mentor to me. And then there were some older musicians in town, Mike Melito, Rich Thompson, Bob Stata, who started hiring me at a very young age. So that really helped. I mean, being 19 and playing gigs almost every weekend with guys who are, you know, older than you is just huge help. And then subsequently, I did get my master's in New York at Manhattan School of Music. And, you know, once you're in the city, I think you're just inspired by everybody. I was quite inspired by a lot of fellow trumpet players like Alex Norris, Scott Wendell. People like that just really knocked me out. And I think once you're in the city, you start to just feel the energy and start to develop your own sound a little bit too.
So did you always know that you were going to be a professional musician?
I did. Even though I was a political science major, I just knew. I mean, I had won all these awards, and you know, well, it's not conceded, but it was the truth of it. And I was, you know, in the top bands at Eastman and stuff. And so, like, even when I wasn't a music major, I was a music major. I just loved it so much that when I wasn't, you know, doing the stuff I had to do at the U of R for my political science major, I was practicing and playing. And in a way, I think it was a really great way for me to spend those first 4 years, because I didn't burn out at all. I was just so, once I finished what I had to finish, I was locked in on what I had to do to become a player. And so it's pretty cool, actually. As you get older, you start to realize that all these other things outside of your practice have a profound impact on your playing and how you see music. So in a way, it was kind of cool.
What do you like best about being a professional musician?
Oh, there's so many things to it. I mean, my career is so varied, but I love the interaction with the musicians both on and off the bandstand. I love to be able to express myself in a way that's really not often attainable through language, well, traditional speaking. I mean, speaking the language of jazz with other people, sometimes it's hard to put your finger on it, but I just feel like that's what makes me the happiest. Or if I'm trying to convey some other emotion, I'm able to do it in a way that's, I know it's kind of abstract, but it's just so meaningful. And I love that. I love traveling and, you know, connecting with audiences, you know, all over the planet. So it's a cool thing. I mean, you know, people say the music business is hard, but there's so many rewards. Even the main journey of practicing and writing and learning how to play is probably the greatest.
What was the first live jazz show you saw that really blew your doors down and made you think, man, this is something I would love to do?
Well, there were so many. I mean, my parents took us to so many shows that when we were kids, but there's one in particular that really blew my mind. I think it was in 1985 or 6. I was in high school, and my parents took my brother and I into New York City from Massachusetts, and we saw the Jazz Tech with Art Farmer and Benny Golson and Curtis Fuller. And we sat down, and they said they announced they were recording record, you know, that performance for a record, and they actually did make 2 records out of it, Back to the City, and I can't remember the name of the other, but just the magic of watching, for me, Art Farmer, an irreplaceable experience. And fortunate enough to later on play some with Curtis Fuller, which really knocked me out too. But it's those kind of things that, just cement in you that, like, I want to be a part of that.
So why do you love jazz?
Why do I love jazz? Because I feel like, I'm a sort of a natural improviser, and to kind of go back to what I was talking about, I love interacting with people on the bandstand. I love swing. I just love the way it feels. I think the power of swing is greater to me, just for me personally, than any other feel of music that I've played or listened to. Now, everybody has their own experiences, but I love that. And I love being able to exist on the bandstand with 3 to 5 other musicians and be in concerts in terms of groove and changes and interaction and all that stuff. It's something that's hard to put into words, quite frankly.
Everyone has their perception of you, your family, your friends, your students, but you live your life. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am?
Yeah.
I think I'm to Kansas. I think a guy who moved to New York and has done everything he can for his family to support them. So I do a lot of writing commercially and for television, and a lot of studio work and a lot of varied things. So I guess I'm not always seen as the guy that's out front, but I feel like I belong. I feel like I have a really strong personality as a player, and I'm really excited to see what the next stage of my career brings as a leader again.
There's one more question I want to ask you before we go.
Sure.
And it's this. Let's say you come to Kansas City, you come down to 18 and Vine, you play a gig, and you have to write up the notes, and you have to convince anybody in this town of all the options they have to come see you and what you're going to give during a show. What's the show that you put on going to be like, and why should they come to it?
Well, I think they should come to it because I feel like I'm offering sort of a somewhat unique voice on my instrument at this time, one that's slightly traditional, but not afraid to be imperfect. I think I've hit a stage in my playing where I love letting go and just letting the music take over instead of trying to show out all those kind of things. And I love explaining my songs to the audience, and so they get a feeling of what I was thinking, why I wrote them, and why we play them.
And very finally, the name of the album is The Scrapper. That's your nickname. How did this all come to be?
I have an old friend who dubbed me The Scrapper many years ago in college, and then when I came to New York, it just kind of took over. And so now it's permeated my entire life, whether it's playing or writing or whatever. And I think a pretty accurate description of me. I'm a feisty little guy sometimes. I'm about 5'4", 145 pounds. But I sort of have my father's, I guess, attitude, you would say. My dad he's not around anymore, but he was a mechanic who grew up a little bit tough, and I'm definitely not anybody could kick my butt, but I would just say it's I like to bring some fire.
I like
all,
it. That's cool. Hey, John, thanks again for taking time out. Thank you for the music. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much for listening, and I can't wait for this thing to roll out and for people to hear it.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in New England, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to John for his time, cool, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Davino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.